I think we're moving on to our regional panelists now. So yeah, I think Tim might be sorting the images out again, but if we could have all of you have your cameras on if you can, and start with an introduction. So Martin, would you mind saying a few words to introduce yourself to start with, please?
Yes, definitely. And hello to everybody from Prague, Czech Republic. I am Martin, a member of the Executive Committee of the European Students' Union, and we represent approximately 20 million higher education students across Europe, including some affiliated regions from Asia.
Great, thank you, and nice to have you here. And next, Abdul, could you say a few words to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Abdul. I'm from Fiji in the Pacific region, representing the Commonwealth Students Association. I'm not part of the executive, but I tend to represent the Commonwealth Student Association in different forums.
Great, thank you. And then we've got Mariam. Oh, I don't think we can hear you. That might. I'm not sure. I can't hear you.
Not me neither. You might want to disconnect your headphones and try it that way.
Everyone, I am Mariam Gamal, public health specialist from Egypt. It's good now?
Yeah,
yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am All African Student Union representative at Egypt. Happy to be with you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And is that all of our regional panelists, or have I missed someone? That is, Isha's nodding. Great, okay, so the first question then for you guys is, what does it actually mean for higher education institutions to turn climate science into climate action? So this could be logistically, conceptually, academically, morally, and how can HEIs as an institution take responsibility for its own climate impacts? So whether that's energy use, traveling, procurement, waste management, setting climate targets, things like that. So if we start with Abdul, do you have any thoughts on that?
Thank you. That's a very good question, actually. Coming from a region that is and will be affected a lot by climate change. We are small island states, or as we like to call ourselves, big ocean states. We're surrounded by the ocean from all sides. We have got countries in the region which are already facing the brunt of rising sea levels. So our higher education institutions play a huge role in research, which helps in policy development. Lots of students go through our systems through climate change programs or development programs. They do lots of research on climate change. But where does the data from those research, the recommendations from those research go? Governments and higher education institutions need to work together because there's lots of data being, output, but it's not being translated into policy. I think the other thing in terms of higher education institution is they are the repository of this information, of this data. They need to implement these measures within the university system. Logistically, for example, going green. I'm part of the Fiji National University, and I think last year we embarked on a project where we are going 90% green for some of our campuses. It's the first such type of project in Fiji and the region, and hopefully other universities in the region take lead from that. So yeah, so universities as repositories of information, possibilities of research, possibilities of collaboration with research institutes and centers, they need to translate this research data into policies, work with national governments, with regional intergovernmental organizations to bring about the necessary policy changes.
Thank you, that's really interesting. So this idea of multifaceted responsibility and also connections with government and different organizations. Yeah, brilliant. Mariam, what are your thoughts on this question?
Excuse me, repeat, because I have a problem.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, repeat the question, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Yeah,
so what does it mean for higher education institutions to turn climate action, turn climate science into climate action?
Okay, here university is a vital hub of research and teaching on climate change. As large organizations, they have significant emissions and contribute to our climate crisis. So a lot of universities have responded to the demand and become more sustainable by making practical changes on the way the institution run, switching to greener energy, reducing the energy output, encouraging sustainable habits in staff and students. Also, they have done a lot of campaigns for students for increase the awareness of students about the climate crisis, and to change the behavior of students in consuming substance in their life, and how to decrease the use of plastics, and also to contribute in the recycling initiative at our university. Also, as some universities have set up a solar farm that help in the electricity needs, which resolves the problem of the climate change crisis.
Great, thank you. So this idea of behavioural change, not just policy change, is really interesting that you brought up. And lastly, we've got Martin. What are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I would focus on two levels, maybe. The first one being immediate action, and the second one being delayed action in the more in the long run. So firstly, as for the immediate action, we need to realize something that Ankit has already stressed, and that is that the universities that produce knowledge about science, that means including climate and environment, and how the weather around and the conditions we live in are changing, they need to follow up on what the institutions themselves have found. You know, they need to turn these words into actions, and thus lead by example. And this can be done by adjusting the internal procedures, or maybe establishing internationally recognized awards in excellence. For example, in Europe, we have an award for institutions that are excellent in human resources, and these are awarded by European Commission. And I believe that if there was such a award in sustainability as well, then universities themselves can strive to achieve these awards as a sort of internal goal. So the first thing is to follow up on their own research. And the second level is this delayed action, and that is by continuing to raise awareness and doing it in a maybe better way. Because by educating people, raising awareness, you might not get an action that is immediate. You might, if that happens, this is perfect. But very likely you will get a sort of a delayed reaction, because people will get the knowledge, and then when the time comes, they will remember it and act on their own. So we also need to foster this level, because it can lead to very good spillover benefits in the medium and long run.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. Brilliant. So we've got some really good ideas coming through. I'll move on to the next question, just so we stay on our schedule a bit. And that is, are students in your region actively engaged in defining the roles and responsibilities of HEIs when it comes to climate action? And do you think this tends to be on an individual basis or on a structural basis? So yeah, if we mix things up again, shall we start with Martin for this one and go around the other way?
Yes, definitely. So I think that in our region, Europe, there are huge regional differences. I believe that in countries in Scandinavia and in some countries in Western Europe, there are quite a well-organized students movement, whereas the rest of the Europe is sort of catching up in this sense. However, this doesn't have to be only a bad thing, because the more advanced regions serve the other ones as an inspiration. So they do not have to reinvent the wheel. Sorry, I had some intermission hearing from somebody. Oh, never mind. And regarding the engagement of students, sorry, can you hear it too, or is it just me?
I can hear it. Yeah, I'm not sure it's coming through. It is stopped now.
Okay, fine. So, Maybe somebody was muted. So to follow up, I think that in Europe there are structures established already that the students can use via either student representations, which are their members of platforms such as ESU, but also via the academic representatives at individual higher education institutions. For example, in Central Europe, where I come from, there are academic senators, which, if they would be included in activities such as the climate students movement, they could influence the change from within.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, they're all fantastic points. It's the idea of inspiring others and helping other areas as well, so we can achieve this goal. So Mariam, did you manage to hear that question?
Yes.
Yeah.
At the North Africa region, especially at Egypt, the Climate Change Center Department at the Ministry of State for Environmental Affairs has done many exhibitions and scientific seminars and environmental campaigns to raise awareness towards the climate change. Also holding a lot of training courses for teachers and educational inspectors on how to simplify the climate change phenomena for students and how to teaching the positive behaviors with a group of new ideas of teaching aids. Like we have some small project for schools, for students at universities, with posters, copybooks, tickets, CDs, which help also at the media and also visual media and the audio, which make the publication in the way of how to act for this climate change and the crisis. Also, we had 30 green corner field sites has been prepared in developing a new generation capable and responsible of the protection of the environment and how to change the behavior to replant places at schools and at universities. Here at October 2020, the World Bank approved $200 million project for Egypt to improve air quality, combat climate change, and reduce emission of air pollution and global warming. So we have the track to help in this crisis and how to minimize its impact. But still, we need more campaigns and more international intervention. Thank you.
Great, thank you. It was really interesting to hear about all of those initiatives that you were talking about. And lastly, we've got Abdul. What did you make of that question?
So as I said, Pacific has been really affected and will continue to be affected by climate change. And we have got something called the Pacific Island Students Fighting for Climate Change. Right now, they are doing a campaign to seek an advisory from the International Court of Justice on climate change. We have got smaller groupings called the Econesian Society, the Environment Society at the University of the South Pacific, which is one of the only 2 regional universities in the world. Ironically, since we're on the topic of HEIs and climate change, universities are one place that students converge, and it provides a platform for them to actually gather, share ideas and thoughts, come to a common objective, to create such movements. And we have seen that happen in Fiji and the Pacific. So there are multiple student bodies that are born out of university settings that are advocating for climate change. We've just had, I think, about 16 students from the University of the South Pacific's Center for Pacific Sustainability. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the name, who have traveled to Glasgow to present research finding at Glasgow holding side events. So students are involved in the climate change movements. There are individuals who are part of research, who are quite passionate, who are taking the Pacific to the global arena. There are also movements. There are groups such as the Climate Change Warriors made up of young people. The other thing is that young people, even though they are students, they tend to be clumped with youth activists, and it takes away the fact that they are students also, and the academic freedom that they have within the confines of a university. There are certain things that you are unable to do within outside of university settings because of political problems, but within the university they have academic freedom to discuss these controversial ideas. So that's something that higher education institutions must empower, that kind of conversation and dialogue within universities. So universities in the Pacific are quite empowering in that sense, because they form the core of what the university provides. There are the universities are providing new courses on climate change, so that helps students to, you know, get motivated to look up or be part of such movements.
Yeah, great. Those are really valuable points. Brilliant. So following on from that question, our next question is, what difference do you think the campaign can make to HEIs in your region? So Mariam, can we start with you with that one?
Yes, for this campaign will help each higher education institution to join the concept of how to act to mitigate and decrease the impact of the climate change crisis. Not every university has joined till now. We started with small campaigns and the small initiatives, but not all the countries, all the continent, the African continent, incorporate it. So I think this movement, this international movement, will influence every student and every university to go through this pact for the development.
Fantastic. And Martin, what did you think?
I hope that maybe one of the impacts could be better cooperation among already existing stakeholders, and creating something that what has been already mentioned today, and that is the sort of standards for universities, some guidelines that all they can stick to. If that would happen, that would be extremely valuable. And maybe one more thing is this. Is establishing of these internal procedures for procurement, which is in line with what I have said previously. When your institution has come to some conclusions in terms of findings in science, then they need to follow up on it. And I don't think that by using this argument, it's only a matter of time until we get more institutions on board.
Yeah, a really good point as well. And Abdul, was there anything you'd like to add to those answers?
Not really. I think Mariam and Martin actually covered that. And I think with such frameworks, it at least gives universities a basic minimum gold standard to build on. And this could be, as Martin said, basis for partnership among universities in a country to see what they can do in terms of, I'm really keen on the whole research partnership and stakeholder partnership and collaboration part, because as I said, universities are repositories of information. They have students in academia who are doing huge research all around the country or even in the region. And these frameworks could actually be part of implementing policies through those research.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. And it was really interesting what you said earlier about the university space and the academic space, and that empowering these discussions to take place. Brilliant. And then our last question for you guys is, oh, my question's gone. I think someone's editing it. Oh no, I can see it again. Okay, our last question is, how do you think HEIs in your region, I think it kind of links in, but how do you think HEIs in your region have been performing in terms of climate action? Do you think it's enough? And what more do you think they can do? So shall we start with Martin for this last question?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the institutions more or less are trying to do something. Is there this effort enough? We do not believe so, but overall it's in a it's on a good track. And again, there are these regional differences. So in some areas such as Northern and Western Europe, the institutions are more advanced. And for the rest of Europe, that doesn't mean that the institutions do not care, but that means that they have maybe more pressing immediate issues to deal with. But I think that overall, the state where we're slowly heading to is to have some sort of minimal understanding across our varied region. I think that this is a crucial time to act, because the attention is pointing towards the issue. There's starting to be some willingness to act on it, And if we catch up on this attention on climate issues, then we can make a change together.
Yeah, fantastic. And if we go to Mariam, did you have any comments on that?
Yes, we have started, but we haven't completed. We need a track, we need a global protocol to go through for every university, higher education institution, to have a collaboration in the research we started, but it's not the final step. We haven't taken more action. It's the small step, the small first step. I think we need more funds for raising the awareness, for using another energy resource, green resource, to educate everyone how to deal to serve our world, our continent, to mitigate the impact of the climate change. So I think the movement will help us to go through and to have faster steps.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. And Abdul?
Yeah, I do think that universities are doing their best, because it's not only about greening the university, it's also about what kind of knowledge are you preparing to the curriculums to prepare for climate change and environment sustainability. So yeah, in recent times, the universities across the region, I think there's only a handful, because we are small island nations, so it doesn't make sense to have lots of universities in small countries. But those bigger countries which have universities that have regional students, they have introduced lots of climate change courses. That we have tried to find linkages. We have just introduced at the National University, Fiji National University, a interdisciplinary study on climate change, for example, at a master's level, which is looking not only at climate change as an environmental issue, but looking at it as an agricultural issue, as a health issue. I'm a graduate of public health, and unfortunately it wasn't there when I was studying, but I saw the curriculum, and it's really innovative. It's trying to take a very holistic approach. So that's one part. In terms of the other logistics and procurement, etc., I think what we really need to understand is how academia has been corporatized, and investing in such green initiatives is not sometimes in the university's favor. So how do we encourage them to move towards a more greener outlook at universities? So if you're going to have a framework that's going to provide a minimum standard for universities to go green, or to be part of this climate change movement, we need to think about what are the stakeholders who are important for this. For example, governments, universities make submissions to governments to receive grants for certain projects, and how do they work with the different partners? That's something that could probably be considered. So yeah, universities are doing what they could. The corporatization of academia is a problem, and identifying stakeholders and champions are really important going forward.
Yeah, thank you. And I think a couple of words that you mentioned there, which really struck with me, were holistic and interdisciplinary as well. Really important to think about. So I'm sure everyone will agree that was an absolutely fantastic and inspirational discussion that you guys have participated in. So thank you. Remarkably, we've got actually a few minutes extra, or a few minutes left. So have we got any questions, Isha, from the people watching? Or Tim, I'm not sure who's monitoring it.
One person wrote in the chat, what are the best ways to convince the institutes and facilities who are less active in taking up this global problem seriously and to get engaged, join and motivate the student in their respective institute? Is there any particular framework or curriculum which could be incorporated into the academia?
Yeah, so if we open this up to anyone, any of the panelists, are there any responses to that question if you heard it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the word. I think that by definition of this answer, this pertains to institutions that are not really reactive to incentives from the outside. But what you maybe can do on this in this situation is to convince individuals that are already in the decision-making process, so that you do not come as an outsider proposing such and such measures, but maybe you try to individually address people that are already within the institutions, and they, as they are already in the decision-making process, can then pass this message on.
Yeah, a brilliant response. We've actually got a couple of others. So Ankit, I think you had your hand up next.
In my experience location, a lot of students that find themselves, responding in ways that are like, well, what is me being present with some signboards going to do? And the response to that question often needs to be personal. This is not just about what is your sign going to do. It's about what if 200 of you showed up with signs in your hands. And so it's important to make it personal and provide them with that stake in the movement. So make it personal, give them that stake, give them the responsibility to make sure that, hey, if you show up, maybe somebody else will also be inspired to show up. And maybe if it's only 50 of us today and we have another demonstration, say next week, and there's going to be hopefully 70, hopefully 75 at the next one, and we just want to keep growing. So it's important not to get demotivated at the first action, and it's important to keep pushing. That's how Fridays for Future got where they are. That's how students' unions got where we are. And I mean, there are student activists that are being jailed in different parts of the world today, and there are student activists that are being kidnapped and murdered in different parts of the world. But that's not to deter us. That's only supposed to embolden how we respond to all of these issues.
Thank you. And then Abdul as well.
I'm just going to take cue from what Ankit said and relay just a personal story. And that is that, we talk about how civil society and academia has a huge disconnect when they can actually complement the work they do. The same thing happens with student movement. Student movement is seen as separate, as an entity of the academia part, and not a civil society or a civic activism, a part of civic activism. And I think we need to bring student movements into the fold of civic activism. Civil societies do play a role in holding governments or corporations accountable, and there is a learning opportunity there between student movements and civil society to how to hold your universities accountable. So I think that's really important. I lost the second thought, but yeah, so letting student movements not work in silos within universities, but empowering them to understand that there is intersectionalities within the activism, that they are part of universities, but they're also doing something which is very closely related to civic pride and civic action. So how do we put those two, marry those two concepts together to have accountability frameworks from the student side to the universities?
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's a really good answer to round off our panel discussions today. So thank you again to all of our panelists.